Hello everybody, I'm very pleased to be here in Harvard University with the famous professor Hélène Langer. Hello Hélène.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your time and for this interview. You are the star of the mindfulness topic, and I'm very pleased to listen to your advice and all this news idea about mindfulness in the new normal world.
Yeah.
So can you explain what is very important for you now in this new way of thinking and in this new world?
Well, mindfulness for me has been going back since the early 70s, so it's hardly new, but I'm glad the world is finally waking up. It is the very simple process of noticing new things. When you notice new things, that puts you in the present, makes you sensitive to context. You're aware that things look different depending on perspective, and it's the essence of engagement. Now, the problem is that most people think that they're mindful, and on occasion when you see somebody else, you think that they're not mindful. So I often start lectures by giving people instances of their own mindlessness. So I might do that now, ask you, how much is 1 and 1?
Yeah, thank you.
How much is 1 and 1?
It's not so easy to answer to a question.
Okay, but most people will say 2, and that's what you've been taught. Now, 1 and 1 is sometimes 2, but if you were adding 1 cloud plus 1 cloud, 1 plus 1 is 1. If you were adding 1 pile of laundry plus 1 pile of laundry, 1 plus 1 is 1, and it goes on. Now, the point of that is that when we think we know, we don't pay any attention. If you knew what I was going to say next, why listen? And people need to understand that everything is always changing. Everything looks different from different perspectives. So in fact, more often than not, we don't know rather than we know. So the bottommost line of all of this is an appreciation of uncertainty. And when we recognize that we don't know, we stay tuned in. Now, when you're actively noticing things because you didn't know it, you feel enlivened. And 40 some odd years of research has shown that this very simple process of noticing leads us to be happier and healthier. People live longer. So the effects are actually important. So here we have something where as you're doing it, you feel alive. It's actually helping your health, both mental and physical. Not only that people find you more appealing if you're mindful. Not only that, but it actually leaves its imprint on the things that we do. So I can see of no reason why anybody who doesn't become aware of this doesn't make a commitment to being mindful, all the time.
Yes, because here in the States we speak a lot about the big depression, about the problem of attrition for companies, and many companies look for tools to have an engagement and a well-being program.
Yeah.
So what kind of tips could you recommend for managers?
Yeah, well, the first thing, many managers are managing situations that really don't need managing. Let me give you I don't know if this is a useful example or not, but I was called into this very large call-in center, thousands of people working, and the advice that I gave them was, everybody really knows how to talk on the phone. And if instead you just tell them, don't assume you're of the same ethnicity, you have the same political background or, religious beliefs, and then just have your conversations. And when you do that, people are more real. And so if somebody calls me asking me for money, for some fundraising, I tell them, if you stop right there, I'll give it to you. But they can't. And, so we all know what it's like talking to somebody who's like a robot. And so the more a manager is over-managing so that they're telling people exactly what to do, the more they're depriving the people whom they're managing from experiencing a sense of themselves, their own mindfulness. Now, when the manager comes to realize, just as the 1 plus 1 doesn't always equal 2, the manager does not always know, rarely knows the very best way. You can't know the best way of doing anything because everything, again, is always changing and looks different from different perspectives. So if the manager knows that the manager doesn't know fully, then the manager will treat the people working for him or her with more respect and share more of what needs to be done.
Thank you so much, Professor, for all this insight. Thanks a lot, because you are a star in this field, and it's very important for us to understand that now in the management by care over care management, it's very important to introduce the well-being concept and the mindfulness concept to be operational and to be part of a good program for manager. Thank you very much.
So that's all you wanted, was one piece of advice?
It's yes, thanks
okay,
a lot,
I got
because
a lot
it
of
was
advice, but you only want
Yes,
one.
we
That's
didn't-
okay.
yeah.
Is there anything that we didn't ask you that you
Well,
want
no,
us
what
to
I'm
know?
saying, just you know, you wanted to talk about burnout. I can talk. You know.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
We
good.
can keep on. We can keep on.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, we
Right,
can
this
do,
is-
and
right.
It does not stop, by the way.
yeah. So, Professor, what is your opinion about burnout and now the increase of burnout in company and, for example, with young people?
Yeah. Well, burnout is mindlessness gone wild in some sense, on steroids. That when you have a lot of burnout, especially in the health fields, you know, where people feel they're giving and giving, and if you're at any job and you just keep doing what you're doing over and over again, and you don't feel you're being rewarded for it, eventually you will feel burnt out. And the point is to be taking, not just to be giving. And when you approach whatever you're doing, looking for new ways of doing it, and there are always new ways of interacting with the people around you, then you're being replenished and you don't end up burning out. Right now, people try to deal with burnout with things like work-life balance. Work-life balance is, of course, much better than work-life imbalance, but it suggests that who you are at work and what pleasures you can derive, or the costs you incur at work, are very different from your non-work setting. And this is simply not true. I think that what we want to do is not strive for work-life balance, but rather work-life integration. You want to be the same person you are at work as you are at home, assuming you have a good home life. Or, you know, so what you want to do is take the best things about home, bring them to work, best things about work, and bring them to the home. People mistakenly think that work has to be stressful. Nothing has to be stressful. Stress is a function of two things. It's the belief that something is going to happen, and when it happens, it's going to be awful. And we can't predict. People, again, think they can predict. If you said to yourself, what are 3, 5 reasons that this thing won't happen? Then you've gone from thinking it's necessarily going to happen to maybe it won't. Then turn it around. Let's assume it does happen. What are the advantages? So by recognizing that everything can be understood in multiple ways, everything that happens, even if you take something like, let's say, the company that was producing a glue and the glue failed to adhere. Oh my God, that's so stressful. You'd have to run home and balance that awful thing at work. Unless what you did was what 3M actually did, was to, well, what are the advantages of a glue that fails to adhere? And they created the Post-it note. The point is that we tend to understand the world, the people around us, in a single-minded way, and everything becomes much more interesting when we open up each of the perspectives to see that everything can be done in multiple ways. Each of us can do whatever we're doing in many different ways. Then we start noticing more, and as we're noticing more, we're invigorated. People care for us more, we're more exciting to be with, and we're energized. And then burnout becomes a thing of the past.
Professor, you wrote a lot of books, and I know that your book about mindfulness is very, very well known everywhere. And do you have a new project?
Yes, I just gave the final draft of my new book, The Mindful Body, Creating Chronic Health in the Age of Possibility. Or it's just Chronic Health in the Age of Possibility. It's brand new, and Random House will bring it out. But it's not going to be out for another year, so why don't you come back?
Yeah.
And then I'd be happy to tell you what it's about. It's full of examples of things that are in some instances quite amazing. An example, for instance, we rig a clock so that we take people who have a wound. They're in front of a clock. The clock is going twice as fast as real time, or half as fast as real time, or real time. Healing depends on perceived time, not real time. So the book is all about the enormous control we have over our health.
Yeah. And the last question is about a personal question. How many hours do you meditate?
I don't meditate.
You don't
No,
meditate.
I used to meditate, 30 years ago, but mindfulness, as I study it, is mindfulness without meditation. Meditation is a practice that you engage in to result in post-meditative mindfulness. This is more immediate. And it turns out that both are good. Both come up with wonderful health effects. And and they're not mutually exclusive. You can do them both.
Yeah.
But mine simply starts with the idea that you don't know. And if you don't know, you engage. And when you're engaging, everything becomes exciting.
Wow. Thank you very much, Professor.